Daniel and Julian work as project coordinators for the same logistics company. They both earn $4,000 per month after taxes. In January, the company transitions to a permanent remote work model. Daniel immediately decides his home office needs an upgrade. He subscribes to a premium cloud storage service for $25 a month. He justifies this by telling himself it will make his file sharing faster. A week later, he adds a productivity analytics app for another $25 a month. He feels a sudden need to track his daily output during the transition. By March, he adds 2 digital streaming services for $25 each. He rationalizes these as necessary background noise for deep work. His total automated monthly outflow for these 4 services is exactly $100. Julian faces the exact same remote work transition. He considers the same cloud storage service but notices he only uses 5% of his free drive. He decides to skip the subscription and organize his existing free folders. He avoids the productivity tracking app because his company already provides a basic task manager. He chooses to rely on the existing system rather than adding a new layer of monitoring. He skips the streaming services and listens to free podcasts during work hours. Julian takes the $100 he would have spent and directs it into a low-cost index fund. This decision happens once and repeats automatically every month. If we analyze Daniel and Julian's situation from a practical perspective, we notice a repeated behavioral pattern.
The difference between them is not their income. The difference is how they handle a small, repeated financial decision. Daniel reacts to immediate emotional triggers. He feels a moment of uncertainty during his transition to remote work. He purchases a digital service to calm that uncertainty. This is a self-justification pattern where spending creates a false sense of productivity. Julian relies on delayed logical reflection. He evaluates his actual usage before committing to a recurring cost. He separates his emotional discomfort from his financial behavior. Automated subscriptions act like a slow fuel leak in an engine. The engine still runs, but the tank loses a measurable amount of energy every single cycle. Daniel loses $100 every 30 days. This happens without him touching a button after the initial setup. The automation removes the pain of payment. When payment is automated, the brain stops registering the loss. This is a behavioral mistake rooted in attention economy design. Companies design subscriptions to be small enough to avoid detection. $25 feels insignificant in isolation, but $25 multiplied by 4 services equals $100. $100 multiplied by 12 months equals $1,200 per year. Julian's behavior produces the opposite mathematical effect. His $100 enters a productive asset every month. Over 1 year, he retains $1,200 of his earned income. He directs this capital into companies that produce real goods and services.
His money exchanges value in the economic system. Daniel does not feel poor each month. The reason is that his brain adapts to the reduced cash flow almost instantly. Human beings adjust their baseline spending to match their available resources. This is a habit pattern formed by absence of friction. A frictionless transaction prevents the brain from triggering a warning signal. Daniel experiences no emotional resistance to the loss of funds. He continues this pattern for 5 years without reviewing his statements. He tells himself the services are required for his career advancement. This self-justification pattern protects him from feeling the need to cancel. Julian maintains his system for the same 5 years. He reviews his automated transfers once every quarter. He notices the accumulation happening in his productive asset account. This positive feedback reinforces his repeated decision tendency. He sees the numbers growing, which strengthens his logical reflection. Let us measure the exact accumulation over 5 years. 5 years contains 60 months. Daniel spends $100 per month for 60 months. His total outflow equals $6,000. This is money that left his account permanently. It purchased temporary access to digital tools and entertainment. It did not build equity. It did not create a returnable asset. Julian retains $100 per month for 60 months. His total retained principal equals $6,000.
Because he placed this money in a productive asset, it generates a measurable return. Assuming a conservative 7% annual growth rate, his money compounds. By the end of year 5, his total balance is approximately $7,200. The measurable cash flow difference between Daniel and Julian is over $13,000. Daniel lost $6,000. Julian gained $7,200. The gap widens because one behavior extracts value and the other behavior stores value. Think of Daniel's behavior like carrying water in a container with 4 small holes. The water drips out slowly, so he never notices the dropping level until the container is empty. He walks the same distance as Julian, but arrives with nothing to drink. Daniel's behavioral mistake is focusing on the individual drops. He evaluates each subscription independently. He never totals the 4 separate $25 charges. This is a common cognitive error where dividing costs make them appear smaller. 4 small fees do not trigger the same alarm as one single $100 charge. If Daniel received a single bill for $100 every month, he might question it. But the charges arrive on different days, from different vendors. This distribution hides the total volume of the outflow. Julian consolidates his decision into a single action. He treats the $100 as one unified transfer. This allows his brain to register the true size of the amount. There is a common financial belief that small expenses do not matter if income is high enough.
Many people think $100 a month is too small to affect their financial future. This belief fails logically when applied to long-term accumulation. A small leak does not sink a ship because of its size, but because of the time it is allowed to flow. Income level does not protect against the mathematics of repetition. A repeated behavior multiplies its effect by the number of occurrences. If the behavior is an outflow, the multiplication creates a deficit. If the behavior is a retention, the multiplication creates a surplus. The belief fails because it ignores the variable of time. People evaluate money in the present tense. They ask what $100 can buy today. They fail to calculate what $100 repeated 60 times becomes. The observable behavioral explanation is that humans struggle to project small numbers into large time frames. The brain prioritizes the immediate emotional reaction over delayed logical reflection. To overcome this, the behavior must be connected to real-world effort. Daniel earns his $4,000 by working approximately 20 days per month. His daily gross output is roughly $200. His $6,000 in subscription spending over 5 years equals 30 days of work. He trades an entire month of his labor for temporary digital access. This is a measurable consequence of an unexamined habit pattern. Daniel did not intend to spend a month's salary on subscriptions. His behavior was driven by a series of small, immediate emotional reactions.
He felt a need for convenience, so he paid for it. He felt a need for entertainment, so he paid for it. He never paused to apply delayed logical reflection to the total cost. This is a self-justification pattern where convenience is equated with productivity. Digital services often promise time savings, but the time saved rarely converts into measurable income or skill development. Daniel did not use his premium cloud storage to generate new revenue. He used it to store files that sat idle. Julian used the default free tools and produced the exact same work output. His productivity was equal to Daniel's. His financial outcome was completely different. Julian replaced the emotional urge to subscribe with a logical evaluation of necessity. He asked whether the service produced a measurable return. When the answer was no, he kept his money. This behavioral shift allowed him to capture value instead of leaking it. In the current economic environment, subscription models are expanding. Software, media, and utility services are moving toward automated recurring billing. This structural shift means the average person is exposed to more small outflow decisions than ever before. The behavioral trap is deeper now because the friction of cancellation is intentionally high. Companies require multiple clicks, confirmations, and surveys to stop a payment. This exploits the human tendency to avoid minor frustration. People continue paying to avoid the 5 minutes of effort required to cancel. This is a repeated decision tendency that favors the service provider.
The consumer carries the cost while receiving decreasing value. Over a 5-year period, the service rarely improves, but the consumer continues to fund it out of habit. The habit loop consists of a trigger, an automated payment, and the reward of continued access. Breaking this loop requires observing the behavior from an external perspective. We must look at the numbers as a system. A system requires inputs and outputs to function. If the outputs exceed the necessary inputs, the system degrades. $6,000 is a measurable degradation of Daniel's financial system. It represents a transfer of his labor value to digital service companies. Julian's system retained that value. He allocated his excess resources into productive assets. These assets represent real companies, real products, and real services. His money participates in the economy rather than disappearing into it. The difference between extraction and retention is a behavioral choice. It is not a choice of income level, it is a choice of awareness. Awareness of how small numbers behave over long periods. Awareness of how automation conceals repetition. Awareness of how immediate emotional reactions bypass logical calculation. Replace automated spending with a deliberate monthly retention transfer. Calculate the total cost of all recurring charges multiplied by 60 months. Small behavioral adjustments produce predictable financial systems over time.